Hi, Maya Zuckerman. Thank you so much for joining me for an episode of the podcast.
Thank you, Liz. It's just so wonderful to be here and to talk to you as always.
So let's start with that. How did we first get to know each other?
So we got acquainted through Holochain and then Visver. I was the director of operations for Holochain, and you came in as a advisor consultant, and Holochain is a one of the Web3 interesting organizations looking at true distributed web application, and what does that mean in the world. And then Visver came out of it, and you're CEO, and such an interesting idea of know your document. How do we actually know where a document has been, who touched it? How do we actually create this verification for our digital documents and assets? And it's been a pleasure to grow and start actually that that amazing venture with you. So that's how we know each other.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when we first met in person, and I think it was Lisbon.
It was Lisbon.
And I remember a few things about meeting you in Lisbon because that was an event where the incredibly distributed remote working members of the kind of core Holochain and Holo development, design, operations community came together as one. I want to say there were 41 or something people
Yeah.
who gathered. And I remember first you being such the organizer. You had such a firm hand in making that happen. And as we went around the room and people introduced themselves in person to one another, some folks had been working together for years but had never actually connected in the same physical space. I was just taken with how incredible an orchestration job that was to bring people from so many different places, many of whom needed visas and other types of documentation, and then to also arrange for really meaningful programming that also had space for people to have those types of conversations that only happen spontaneously when you're in the same space. And I was just, one, incredibly impressed by you as operations goddess. And then you and I had a few opportunities where we got to really chat one-on-one.
Yeah.
One of them was, I remember this long walk that ended in getting hot chocolate, but it wasn't exactly the hot chocolate we wanted, but it was still really good.
Yeah.
And then another one was I led a walk to go get those wonderful egg custard tarts that
Pastel de
are
nata.
yes. Oh, those were so delicious. And on the way there and back, we had a conversation about coaching and asking questions that empower yourself and others. And I just remember being really awed by what a natural coach you are. I know you've done coaching in the past in both sort of formal and informal settings, but it's just something that you exude in terms of how you look to support, encourage, and engage people. So I have loved getting to know you through Holo and the Holochain project, and then to work with you trying to found Visver and seeing where this journey takes us. So it's been an adventure for sure.
Absolutely. And thank you for the reminders. And also, I absolutely share the orchestration of that event with Mary Camacho, the CEO of Hollow, and now the CEO of Cerdia, and the COO of Visver, correct? Like the woman of many talents and just unbelievable capabilities. And, what I really enjoyed also getting to know you through the last few years and also those walks is your brilliance. Your, it's brilliance, but with this comfort of humanity. There's something about, you meet, we get to meet a lot of brilliant people in our lives, but some people come in, I'm like, I'm brilliant. With you, it's like, you're brilliant and you make us comfortable next to you. So thank you for, what you just said. And Yeah, and I've, my work is coaching. My work is, I just started literally finishing my first full week and a half in a new position as chief of staff for a really interesting company called Formant, really looking at where does AI touch the physical world? Really interesting. And it really shows me that, what I want to bring to the world is also the connection to people. And one of the biggest learnings in my life is like, we're not going to be able to have a good world, not because we don't have the smartest people or enough money or enough resources to do it, is that because if we don't actually work together well, that's what's going to break down. And that is what is happening. So for me, my MO when I work with people is, how do we do work better together? How do we connect as humans? Because it's not just a place of job. You're there so many hours, you meet people, and to bring both care, but also tenacity, productivity, all of those things in the same way, in the same space, helps the day to day. Helps make our work feel better, feel more at ease. And I think that's what I want to bring.
I love how the universe keeps bringing threads together. So recently on the podcast, I had my friend Claire Skillen, and she is CEO in regenerative agriculture and sustainable food systems. And we were talking about how everything is so interconnected and interdependent that, and the phrase she used was, food isn't enough. It's not enough to just look at the food. You have to look at the entire system. You have to look at all of these different touch points. And that's something that I've seen you bring into every space that you're in, is you really have this systems thinking mind. And I know that you, I would say somewhat recently, completed a master's degree. And what struck me about the study that you pursued is that I thought it really reflected that nature of yours, which is to look for patterns and resonance across systems. And I'm curious, how are you using that learning in your new job as you take it on?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing in the concept of regeneration. So even before I did a MBA in circular economy, enterprise and innovation, I finished that in early 2023. And my topic of my research project was around how to bring collaboration, a continuous collaboration in cities between different stakeholders to actually implement circular and regenerative cities. Not something simple. I don't do simple. And but before that, I wrote an article called The Regenerative Entrepreneur slash Leader. And it really asked the question of, like, who is this regenerative entrepreneur? Like, what does regenerative leadership, what does a regenerative business look like? And it's not like my invention. I brought in multiple scholars and thinkers into that. And it really looks at, for any ecosystem, including a business ecosystem, to be thriving, you need to look at leverage points and you need to look at how everybody is doing. We're not in a healthy system globally right now in multiple aspects of it. But that's something that I do want to bring in, because one of the things about regeneration from a nature perspective is, if you create the condition for a natural system to be regenerative, it will actually heal itself, and it will be thrivable. So that's kind of the whole idea of regeneration, is like, right now we're not even in sustainability. There's a famous graph from Bill Reed and Carl Sandburg and a couple of other people have evolved it, and shows like we're barely in sustainability, and to get into regeneration, we need to have reconciliation and restoration before we can even get into regeneration. So I bring that same mindset into business, into people, because if the system is unhealthy, we got to get it into a baseline that is. And right now in the new startup, kind of actually seeing that the system is healthy. They're they're in a pivot, but the system is healthy. The people are good. Like, there's a fertile ground to grow from, but you got to keep it into a sustaining and a restoring And then you can actually be in the regeneration concept, which is a system that actually is thrivable by itself. You don't have to be pushing it. And, like any business, especially if it's pivoted, you're not there yet. So I want to bring in that mindset of like creating a fertile ground. How do we actually cultivating the ground to actually grow from? If we're not doing that, and that actually does mean the people side as well, we're going to have burnt out people. We're going to have resentment. We're going to have all these things that make our ground not healthy. And of course, that is what is also happening in the world right now with societies. So that's how I bring it into like everything I do. It really is my modus operandi.
Every time I hear you talk about your work and your interests, I am blown away by your passion and your energy for making positive, sustainable change. And I'm curious what the root of that is. Where does that passion originate from in your life?
So I would say that even specifically the last couple of years, but always, it connects to my Jewish heritage, the concept of world repair and the concept of Rabbi Tarfon. I'm atheist, but still Jewish. Rabbi Tarfon talks about not be daunted by the world grief and doing rightly today and speaking kindly today, but that we're not obligated to finish the job, but we're not allowed to abandon it. So this concept of world repair is something that's very deep in me, and understanding that I can't do it all by myself and I won't finish the job, but it's also my job. And that means that for me to actually operate at that level, I need to also take care of myself. I need to see that my mental health, my sound body and sound mind is taken care of, cultivating that to be able to actually cultivate it in the outside world. And when I've been in zero ability, no spoon ability, out of spoon ability, like that's something, one of the places I go back to is, can I cultivate hope? Can I cultivate a sense of being that can actually tackle these very hard things? So that's what it comes from. It really does. And it's not a Pollyanna hope. This is like, I think the great writer Rebecca Solnit talks, I think she shared it, or maybe it's somebody else. She talks about hope in the dark, but there's another quote about, hope is not this kind of Pollyanna thing. She's rising from the side, from the gutter, knees scratch, spitting a tooth and saying, let's go again. That's where it comes from. Like, it actually is something that, like, it's a choice. If I don't go that way, then it's doom and gloom. And I don't want to be in doom and gloom because then I can't operate.
Hope, in my experience, is born of grit.
Yeah.
And hope is not something where you can rely on just good vibes only. Hope comes from a truly unwavering belief that is met with an equally unwavering commitment to rigorous honesty about the current state. And if you're not honest with yourself about what the obstacles are and what the challenges are, then hope isn't operate you can't operationalize it. You have to be able to both see and know what that future desired state can be, while at the same time planning for and around the immediate challenges that you have. And a hope comes from your knowledge that not alone, but with people, resources, support, encouragement, that future can be achieved. And it's such a powerful feeling, hope is. And it's also in fairly short supply. How do you, practically speaking, cultivate hope? What do you do?
Yeah, no, this is something that I'm actually intentionally cultivating, is cultivating hope. Surrounding myself with people who are against all odds, are working for a better world. And when I say against all odds, I'm serious. Like, I'm Israeli and I have Palestinian friends and I have people in the protest movements in Israel and people who are fighting for their own people, Ghazians, on the ground and away that are looking at coexistence, looking at solutions for two nations. I'm not even going to say two states at the moment because it's just so, that's polarizing, that's problematic, all those things, right? But two nations actually being identified, having the right of self-identification, self-reliant, all the things. And I'm finding hope in those people. I'm finding hope in my own people's history, knowing that the hardest moments in our history is when people actually created a possibility for a new future. And I'm seeing it from people around me. Like I'm connected either one person or two person away from the people who actually are again in the hardest moments saying there could be a different world, there could be a different way, and this is how we're going to achieve it. That's how, if they can achieve it, who am I? And I also, I have coaches, I have people that I turn to who have gone through very big hardships. And again, I say, if they can do it, I can do it. And not in a comparison, but more, it's a choice because I've been in the nights of the dark soul. I know what it feels like. And the only way I found to be able to have some form of equilibrium is actually to have purpose, like day-to-day purpose, purpose in work, purpose in life, and also work on projects that, again, I don't know if I'm going to finish. I don't know if it's going to be something that I'm going to bring to the world, but just the act of working on them is giving me hope and giving me purpose and helping me cultivate it.
So as you were talking, I was thinking back to a conversation that I had on this podcast with my friend Torbjörn, who is Norwegian, currently lives in Berlin, and is active in the movement for the climate, as well as using all of his skills as the chief operating officer for Catalyst, which is building community relationship management tools and software for groups and activists who are trying to bring together their communities in service of a cause and a greater purpose. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about that conversation that he and I had, where we talked about the fact that not everyone is an activist in the street. And there are so many needs within movements, so many needs within communities that are very basic, mundane, and even boring. And for him to support activists by building a CRM I mean, in some ways it seems almost silly. It's like, well, but it's activism. What does activism have in common with a CRM? And in fact, it's everything. We need tools for organizing. We need tools for the movements. We need tools for our communities. So I'm curious, as someone who is so business minded, as someone who is so organized and really just blessed with this level of business acumen, how did you identify the skills you have that you can use in service of the purpose you've identified for yourself?
Yeah, so a lot of it is, from the business is like what can actually move the needle, actually looking at it as a problem to solve in the world. So design a design question, build a prototype, which I've built, do the research, which I've done. And like doing the research is like, academic research, even if I use AI, putting reality filters, etc. And then timelines, like use project management tools, and then use a dose of what I call radical pragmatism, thinking outside the box, but actually, is it actually going to move the needle? And I wrote an article about more radical pragmatism in geopolitics, but I bring in radical pragmatism into work as well. It's again, this kind of, and into this project that I'm trying to get off the ground is like, what's real? What's the big vision? Like God, if I had like so much money and so much time, this is what I gonna do. And what's the little thing I can do right now? And I got it from like the very, very big vision, decks and one pages and, 8 months of thinking to something I worked on with a friend on a vibe coding tool, and we got something done in a week and it works. So there needs to be that kind of pragmatism. Yeah, and also I think the radical pragmatism doesn't try to solve things that are just like non-tangible. Like I actually am against things like solve, let's end world hunger. Let's create peace on earth. It's like, it's beautiful, great. Like there's no roadmap to that. What if we reduce hunger in certain areas by 10%? Wow, what would happen in the world? That's actually still radical, still out there, but pragmatic. We can actually measure it. We can actually say this is happening. So I think that is something that is so needed in the world, because I see a lot of, and I think there is something in some of the activist movements that is like, it's important. Yes, like some utopian ideas, great. But if you don't couple that with pragmatic results, you're always going to be in the one day maybe, instead of saying, hey, we're trying to get there and we've managed to go here and here's the results, because results actually give people motivation to continue. Otherwise it feels very Sisyphean. So yeah, so I think that's part of what I bring much more into my world is just this concept of radical pragmatism.
You are saving the world with SMART goals.
Yes.
And as you were talking, it was making me think of so much of the work that's been done to rethink positive psychology. And Gabrielle Oettingen is a professor at NYU, and she has a website called Whoop My Life, WOOP. And she has really done a lot to bring the science into the practical, real world. And the thing that she's highlighted that I find most interesting and for me as a valuable insight is that when people start off on wanting to make change, they tend to focus on what their wish is. That's the W in Whoop, their wish, and they focus on what the outcome will be. And so they have a goal. And I'm guessing that she went with wish instead of goal because Goop My Life was probably not going to be a thing. And I'm pretty sure that Gwyneth Paltrow beat her to the punch on Goop. But you begin with this goal or your wish. And then the next place you go is to describing the outcome, what it looks like, what it feels like, how you will experience it when you get there. And what she's noted in the literature is that most people fail to reach that end state because they skip a step and they go directly to planning. And it's similar to the person who buys an article of clothing that is multiple sizes too small and says, I'm going to hang this on my refrigerator or the front of my closet, and this is how I am going to get in shape. I will see this. I will be motivated. I see the outcome. I will get there. And none of that actually addresses the obstacles, which is the second O in the acronym. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but to me, it's one of those things where you have to begin by acknowledging that, for example, you may work multiple jobs. You may be on a fixed income. You may not have access to fresh and healthy foods. You may live in a food desert. You may not have space to prepare your own meals. There are a host of things that get in the way of people's good intentions to care for themselves. And they're real and they're practical, and they have to be considered and addressed if that end state is to be reached. And what I'm curious about is your approach to tackling obstacles. Because when I think of the projects you've been engaged with, these are all endeavors to take on really meaty, big challenges in our world. And as you said, the the goal needs to be something that is measurable. It's specific. You can take action on it. You can have metrics to report it. You have something that's time bound. So it really is sort of smart. I'm curious, how do you go about sort of right sizing goals and then considering and tackling the obstacles that are in the way.
Yeah, this is I've heard of Whoop. I used to use gig on goals, and then a friend of mine and I did this like crazy thing called Vimosh. Also had the O is also obstacle. But yeah, obstacles are so important, and naming them, and I think naming that for yourself, like what's stopping you, and then naming the real obstacles in the world. So there's like internal and external obstacles, and that actually lets you hold them and kind of go, yeah, that could happen, and be okay with it, and then go anyways. So I've noticed that if I don't talk about obstacles and if I don't have a real conversation, that doesn't move forward. And one of the things that for me over like 10 years ago when we started doing this like idea of Emosh, which came in from the gig on goals, they're all kind of different, similar frameworks of the same thing. The big thing was like, who am I in this whole goal setting? What's my identity? And then what's stopping me? So, so I've always used that as part of my work, and I've always been frank about it. And I also being okay not reaching the goal. What am I learning is part of my life is, sometimes goals, you don't reach the goal. Like I wrote a book, I wrote a science fiction. My goal was to publish it. Did not reach the goal. Multiple reasons why. But I've learned so much just in the process. And I get to say I wrote a book, didn't publish, but still I wrote a book. So it's crazy. And and being also okay with failure, because failure is an opportunity to learn, and it's not doesn't make you wrong. I used to think that. I used to think that I was wrong because I failed. But the shift in the identity for me was, what do I learn? And continuously to learn, and also putting in front of me who I want to become all the time. So I've continuously put kind of the person I want to become, the correct person I'm growing into in front of me, and then being really realistic about what the obstacles might be, but also putting out there this is who I want to be, this is what I want to earn, this is who I want to work with. And balancing those two out has been like really helpful for me to get to the places I want to be in, and to work on the things I wanted to work on. Not that I can say everything, I've achieved everything, absolutely not. And I've got so much more to go, but I'd like to get to the point that I'm like, okay, managed to do this, learned that, managed to bring this to the world.
So you brought up something that I think a lot about, which is how success and failure feature into our sense of identity. And it's taken me a long time to recognize that failure is an event. It's not an identity, and neither is success. I am not a failure. I am not a success. I am me. And I experience failure, I experience success, but neither of those define who I am. And for a very long time, I let my experiences of failure and success define who I was. And it was ultimately a very lonely and miserable place to be. So I'm curious, as someone who has really devoted her life and career to startups, to initiatives, to places with a lot of risk and a lot of opportunity for, to experience failure. How have you adopted resilience practices, and what keeps you coming back to these big, audacious challenges that aren't certain and where the outcome isn't guaranteed?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for framing failure and success as an event and not an identity. I've got to take that on. It's so good. I think it really is like something I've learned in the last few years. And I agree with you, like being in that failure state of like, this is who I am is so lonely and so uncomfortable. And yeah, I have a passion for innovative worlds, like, because I do believe that something better is possible. That's what startups are. Something better is possible, a better and new way of doing things, a better and new way of exploring things. And I think that's what draws me in. I don't think I'd be happy in a very large corporate job where things move very, very slowly. I think innovation is what gets me excited as well. I think maybe you could probably see that a lot of people who work in startups, there's also a little bit of an addiction to that. Like I would absolutely say I love innovation. I get fired up and lit up with innovation and the new and the novelty of the new. But it also comes with huge risks, failures, things that don't work, all of those things. And I think one of the things that I would say is being in the spot of understanding that people really try to do their best. I actually don't agree with Yoda. Do or not do, there is no try. No, try is all we have. Most people who succeeded had to try first, and not everybody who tries succeeds, and it's okay. And and what I've learned is, and what brings me resilience is that in the journey of trying to learn, trying to bring something new, I have grown exponentially in everything I do. Like what you learn in a startup in a month is sometimes what you learn elsewhere in 6 months to a year. The growth potential just internal of how to deal with things, how to deal with people, everything you learn is so big that even if a thing doesn't work, the potential for yourself and the people around you and who they are as people is so much bigger. And hopefully we all get to harness that resilience, learning, genius to the next venture and actually bring that one into the world. And I think it's also like the academic world, the more I don't think things are lost. The more people are learning and experimenting and growing, they bring that knowledge with them everywhere they go. And that's what I felt. What I've learned in the last almost decade now that I've done high level operational, director, VP of ops, COO, chief of staff, it's basically all the same role. Like what I've learned in the past, is it 8 years or 9 years of this level? I can't even put it into one book. It's just so much. So I think that gives me resilience, is that because I've learned, I've seen it again, I've developed these coping mechanisms. The other thing is I am intentional on building my resilience coping mechanism toolbox. So if something fails, if there's a moment, I now have all these tools to try out if I'm feeling the stress, if I'm feeling the fatigue, if I'm feeling anxiety, all the things, or if there's a specific issue that I'm dealing with at work. I got tools and tools and tools. So I continuously develop myself and this toolbox. I can bring it along and grow it and be able to pull out a new tool or a different tool to try if that's the right tool for the moment. And that only comes with been there, done that through experience.
So I'm curious, you described startup life, founder life as in some ways feeling almost addictive. And I agree with you. There is so much energy that I get from being part of projects that are pushing envelopes we didn't even know existed
Mm-hmm.
and are making change, and I can see that change. And I think it's part of what just draws me to freedom tech in particular is being able to see the effect of what I am working on and how I'm bringing my skills to the table. How being part of this team, I am contributing to work that is meaningful and purposeful, and there is nothing better than that. And as I said when I started this, I am curious what you see as the longer term arc of your career here. And where do you want to get yourself to? What do you ultimately want to be working on?
Good question, and it's something I've been thinking a lot. I just got honored to be selected for a really interesting foundation for Jewish leadership, named for a slain brother of a dear friend. The brother was Ophir Lipstein, who died on October 7th, and their MO is to connect Jewish leadership around the world. And I came with a project, one of many that I'm thinking that might be the next thing. And I'm going to take my time. I've got a new job right now. I love that job. But if I could do anything, I'd love to bring more energy to this. And part of it is this intersection between disinformation, narratives, and positivity, and like flipping the script on kind of just a very poisonous narrative around the world and cleaning it up. And it's a very tall order. This is like literally life purpose. And, and I believe that even though I've done work in climate tech and I definitely want to keep in that world, is that without a good narrative in the world of what is possible, what is real, what is truthful, what is sane, what is rational, we don't have a chance. And it doesn't matter where it's my own people or humanity. We're in a moment that we need reality and we need to work together. And at that moment, we're unleashing AI. And that's a problem. And if we're not careful, which we're not, it's going to cause a lot of problems. AI is amazing. It's going to also revolutionize and solve so many problems as well for us. But I think there's a balance between both of them. So that's something I'd like to work on. And I started a kernel of a prototype around disinformation, but also understanding the bigger picture of disinformation. What does it create? And I see it as we call the product harmonize, because we want to reduce harm of online narratives, but also create harmony in narratives. And like that kind of philosophical idea. And I've noticed that in reality, that's what I've been working on throughout my life. That's the through line of like why harmony and not balance. There's a whole philosophical ideation behind it, but yeah, there's something there that I want to work with. And again, if I don't get to finish it, fine. I'm not wedded to that. It's a very kind of almost Buddhist detachment, but I want to contribute, like any kind of academic paper contributes to the whole ecosystem. I want some of my ideas to contribute to the whole system and maybe push it into a healthier equilibrium. So yeah, that's I think what I would like to work on.
Well, you've got the what. Now I guess it's a question of the who. Who do you want to be talking to right now? And who do you want to be seeking you out?
I'm looking for, this is a side project, so I'm looking for partners, people who are interested in this, academics, always investors, but we haven't even raised any funds. This is very side project for now. Definitely looking for any kind of partners who are interested in physical AI for Formant. Yeah, that's what I'd be interested. If anybody wants to even just talk, I can do a quick demo and see if there's any interest, because it's beyond a wicked problem. This is what is called a hyper object problem. We can't see the beginning and the end of it.
Well, Maya, I can't wait to see what it is that you continue to do and what you do next, because I stand in awe of your passion, your commitment, and how you have found ways of taking your skills in business and operations and using them to empower people and really drive meaningful change, and to do it all with your purpose at the center. So I'm very grateful to be colleagues with you. I'm very grateful that we're friends. And I appreciate your taking this time and sharing so much about yourself and also what you're up to.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. And it's such a joy to be in conversation with you.